U.S. and its European allies hit Russia with another round of sanctions amid possible war crimes in Ukraine. Banking, investments, and family members of Russian officials, including some of Vladimir Putin's relatives, are all targeted in this latest round of economic measures. Weijia Jiang has more from the White House. Weijia?
Elaine, President Biden says the U.S. and its allies are not only stifling Russia's economic growth today, but for years to come. Tonight, though, Ukraine's president saying those sanctions are simply not enough to stop the bloodshed that's happening right now.
There's nothing less happening than major war crimes.
President Biden promised to make Moscow pay for its brutality, today rolling out another round of harsh economic penalties.
Just in 1 year, our sanctions are likely to wipe out the last 15 years of Russia's economic gains.
The U.S. banned all new investment in Russia by Americans, blocked assets from two of Russia's largest banks from the American financial system, and targeted Kremlin officials and their relatives. The U.S. also sanctioned Vladimir Putin's adult daughters, Maria Putina, a scientist, and Katerina Tikhanova, a former acrobatic dancer, both billionaires living in Russia and rarely seen in public. The U.S. also leveled its first criminal charges against a Russian oligarch today, Konstantin Malofeyev, accused of evading sanctions, millions of his assets in the U.S. seized.
These oligarchs and their family members are not allowed to hold on to their wealth in Europe and the United States and keep these yachts worth hundreds of millions of dollars, their luxury vacation homes, while children in Ukraine are being killed, displaced from their homes every single day.
But the sanctions so far have not targeted Russia's energy sector, the country's biggest moneymaker, and the ruble is now back to its pre-invasion worth. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky dismissed the tough rhetoric around sanctions today and criticized world leaders who still think that war and war crimes are not something as horrific as financial losses. Meanwhile, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said the war and the sanctions are causing economic pain around the world.
Russia's invasion disrupted the flow of food for millions of people around the world and caused prices to spike.
Secretary Yellen also said today that President Biden wants Russia to be expelled from the G20, the group that is made up of the world's largest economies, adding that the U.S. will boycott meetings during its next summit if Russian officials show up. Elaine?
Weijia Jiang, thank you. For more, I'm joined by Jonathan Schanzer. He is a senior vice president for research at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and a former terror finance analyst for the Treasury Department. Jonathan, welcome. Thanks for being with us. What is the strategy? What is the goal behind targeting the family members of government officials with these sanctions?
Well, this is not new. We've seen this in places like Syria in the past. I think the primary message here is that, first of all, Vladimir Putin won't be able to hide his money with his closest relatives, and more importantly, that they're not immune. Putin, I think, has valued the privacy of his family. In fact, Russian media are not even allowed to talk about his daughters. They're not allowed to use their first names. So he's done everything that he can to keep these people out of the public eye. This was, I think, a very deliberate move on the part of the administration to make it clear to Putin that he can no longer hide them or hide his wealth. And so I think he will likely not be happy about this. What his response is another question.
Well, sanctions have been impacting Russia's economy and its citizens, but they've not persuaded Vladimir Putin to end his invasion of Ukraine. Why do you think that is?
Well, sanctions take a long time to bite. And part of the problem here is that oil is the primary means of revenue for Russia. The sanctions that we have in place, that perhaps also added by the Canadians, the UK, and some other countries, have made it more difficult. Perhaps it's taken 10%, maybe a 10% bite out of those oil revenues. But we really need to start to see them hit in places like Germany, the Netherlands, China, India, and these are countries that have not yet made the decision to join sanctions. So U.S. sanctions will not work unilaterally. This will require a campaign. It'll be important for the Biden administration to not lose sight of that and to continue to lobby these countries and to perhaps find other means to supply them with energy in exchange for them joining this global sanctions regime.
Well, can you tell us more about the impact these sanctions are having on Russian citizens?
Yeah, I mean, the citizens are always going to be the first ones to pay the price. The leaders of these countries, of autocracies and kleptocracies, they often will pay it forward or pay it downstream, if you will, to the people of Russia. So right now, you're beginning to see, I think, a number of Western companies that are no longer working in Russia. That means that Russians won't be able to enjoy the services of a lot of their favorite restaurants or their favorite cafes. Or perhaps other companies. So they're feeling that immediately. They're also probably feeling the pinch in terms of where they can transfer money, where they can travel abroad. Right now, the scrutiny is significant. And so, you will certainly see it at that grassroots level. The issue here, I think, is that we really need to make sure that the elite feel it. And again, I think that tracks back to the actions taken today of targeting Putin's two daughters, as well as Lavrov's wife and daughter.
Well, the U.S. and its allies have avoided major sanctions on Russia's energy sector. Why is that?
Well, we have an energy crisis on our hands, and I think we're going to need to find people, specifically countries or companies, that are going to be able to make up whatever losses that we incur. You're already seeing it at the pump. If we upped those sanctions and if we made it harder on Russia, we'll certainly be making it harder on ourselves as well. And so I think this needs to be calibrated. But once again, I think once we begin to find some of those other countries that are significant trade partners with Russia, if we can get them to stop buying Russian oil, I think that will be the moment where Putin says, "Uncle." We just have not gotten to that place yet. And just, I think as a reminder, it took more than a year, maybe a year and a half, when we began to put sanctions on Iran, just to be able to get to that critical mass where they would really feel it, where they were unable to put oil on the market in ways that they were used to, and they had to start working to circumvent our sanction system. We are far from that right now, and maybe that's a good thing as we plan for the future to make sure that we don't see future shocks at the pump.
Yeah, clearly at the moment, though, energy supplies are the leverage that Russia is wielding over many countries right now. Jonathan Schanzer, Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you.